The research vessel Hyperion drifted silently through the outer reaches of the Carina Nebula, its sophisticated sensors probing the darkness for signs of the anomaly that had brought them to this remote corner of space. Dr. Elena Santos stood at the main observation deck, her dark eyes reflecting the distant stars as she reviewed the data streams flowing across her neural interface display. After 6 months of following increasingly bizarre energy signatures, they were close to something unprecedented. Dr. Santos called Lieutenant Sarah Chen from her station at the helm. The quantum fluctuations are intensifying. Whatever's out there is massive. Her hands moved across the holographic controls, making minute adjustments to keep the Hyperion stable against the growing gravitational distortions. Elena nodded, studying the readings with growing excitement. The energy signature matches no known natural phenomenon. This has to be artificial. She turned to Dr. Marcus Way, the ship's xenotechnologist. What do you make of these patterns? Marcus frowned at his own displays, his augmented eyes whirring as they processed the data. If I didn't know better, I'd say we're looking at quantum entanglement on a stellar scale. But that's impossible with any known technology. Impossible is humanity's favorite challenge, Elena replied with a slight smile. It was that very attitude that had gotten her selected to lead this deep space research mission. When the first signs of the anomaly had been detected, most of the scientific community had dismissed it as instrument error. Elena had fought for months to get this expedition approved, arguing that the patterns were too precise to be natural. The ship's AI, spoke through the chamber's audio system. Alert. Detecting spatial distortion forming at bearing 047 Mark 183. Recommend immediate defensive protocols. Before Elena could respond, space itself seemed to fold open before them, revealing something that shouldn't exist. A massive structure materialized from the void, a sprawling complex of crystalline spires and geometric shapes that defied Euclidean geometry. Parts of it seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once, making it difficult for human eyes to focus on directly. My God, Marcus whispered. It's a nexus point. The theoretical papers about them don't do justice to the reality. Elena felt her heart racing. Nexus points were the stuff of scientific legend, hypothetical space stations that could manipulate the fundamental forces of reality itself. If this was truly one of them, it would be the greatest discovery in human history. Life signs detected, Araya announced. But the readings are unusual. They appear to be partially quantum in nature. Broadcast standard first contact protocols, Elena ordered, her voice steady despite her excitement. All frequencies, all known formats. For several tense minutes, there was no response. Then a voice emerged from their communications array. Not sound exactly, but pure information being converted into something human minds could process. You should not be here, it said, the words carrying an undertone of both wonder and fear. Your vessel's construction is primitive. You risk destruction merely by approaching our station. Elena stepped forward. I am Dr. Elena Santos of the Earth research vessel Hyperion. We come seeking knowledge and peaceful contact. There was a pause, and then, Earth, humans. Yes, we have observed your species from afar. So young, yet you venture so far. Your technology is crude, but you achieve what should be impossible through sheer determination. Perhaps that is exactly what we need. The voice seemed to gain strength. I am Nexus Controller 09, last administrator of the Luminary Collective. Once we were masters of reality itself. Now we are barely more than ghosts, our great works failing around us. If you truly wish contact, you may dock at coordinates being transmitted. But know that in doing so, you risk not just your lives, but the attention of those who would see us destroyed. Elena looked at her crew. Lieutenant Chen sat ready at her station, waiting for orders. Marcus was practically vibrating with excitement. The rest of the bridge crew watched her with a mixture of anticipation and apprehension. We accept, Elena said firmly. Humanity has never turned away from the unknown simply because it was dangerous. Such fascinating creatures you are, Zara 9 replied. You acknowledge the danger, yet proceed anyway. We once thought this trait was a sign of primitive development. We were wrong. It is perhaps the greatest strength any species can possess. As the Hyperion moved carefully toward the designated docking point, Alina couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to change the course of human history. The Luminary were clearly far more advanced than humanity, yet something had brought them low. Something had reduced them to hiding in this impossible station at the edge of known space. Looking at the massive structure, Alina was reminded of the ancient ruins on Earth. Magnificent works reduced to shadows of their former glory. But ruins could be rebuilt. Civilizations could rise again. And if there was one thing humans excelled at, it was finding ways to achieve the impossible. The docking process itself demonstrated the vast technological gap between the species. The station's systems reached out and simply relocated a section of its structure to perfectly match the Hyperion's docking port, matter reorganizing itself at the quantum level. A welcoming party awaits you, Zara 9 informed them. We have adjusted the environmental conditions in the reception area to suit your biology. Though I must warn you, our current forms may be disturbing to your sensibilities. Alina assembled her first contact team, herself, Marcus, and Dr. Sarah Chen, who had training in both tactical situations and xenobiology. As they approached the airlock, Alina reminded them of the core principles that had brought humanity to the stars. Remembered, she said, no matter how advanced they may be, we have something to offer. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology. It's our ability to look at problems from new angles, to find solutions where others see only obstacles. We're here to help if we can, and to learn if we can't. The airlock cycled, and they stepped into a chamber that challenged their understanding of reality. The walls seemed to be made of solid light, geometric patterns flowing like liquid mathematics, and there, waiting for them, were the Luminary. They were beings of crystal and energy, their forms only partially existing in normal spacetime. What might once have been bodies of flesh were now complex matrices of light and matter, held together by technologies that humans could barely comprehend. Yet despite their alien nature, there was something undeniably alive about them, and something undeniably desperate. "Welcome," said one of the beings, its voice resonating directly in their minds. "We are the last of the Luminary, and we need your help." The central chamber of the Luminary station defied human comprehension. Geometric shapes folded through dimensions that shouldn't exist, while streams of data flowed like luminescent rivers through crystalline channels. Dr. Elena Santos stood with her team, watching as their Luminary hosts materialized and dematerialized around them, their forms shifting between states of matter like living quantum equations. "Our story is one of hubris," Zara 9 explained, their form coalescing into something roughly humanoid. "We achieved mastery over matter, energy, and the fundamental forces of reality. We thought ourselves gods." The being's voice carried a weight of ancient regret. "We were wrong." Marcus Way's augmented eyes were working overtime, trying to process the impossible technology surrounding them. "Your quantum integration is complete," he observed. "You exist simultaneously as matter and energy. That's incredible." "Incredible, yes," another Luminary, who had introduced themselves as Core Mind Nexus, responded. Their form was more abstract, patterns of light suggesting the vague shape of a torso and head, but also fatal. "Our transformation is killing us." Elena stepped forward, her mind racing to understand. "The energy requirements must be enormous. Is that why parts of the station are dark?" "Perceptive," Zara 9 acknowledged. "We are dying, Dr. Santos. Our power cores are failing. The quantum matrices that sustain our evolved forms are destabilizing. We have perhaps 3 of your Earth months before total system failure." Lieutenant Chen, who had been quietly observing until now, spoke up. "Why not simply power down? Return to a physical form." The chamber filled with a sound like crystalline wind, luminary laughter, but hollow and sad. If only it were that simple, Core Mind Nexus replied. The transformation was meant to be one way. We are no longer capable of existing as purely physical beings. When our systems fail, we will simply cease. Elena felt a chill run through her, an entire civilization on the brink of extinction. There must be something we can do. Our technology may be primitive compared to yours, but sometimes the simplest solutions. A violent tremor ran through the station, cutting her off. Red light pulsed through the crystalline walls. Void hunters, Zara 9 said, their form flickering with alarm. They found us. The humans exchanged confused looks. Void hunters? Elena asked. Core Mind Nexus's form expanded, projecting a holographic display that filled the chamber. It showed massive dark ships that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. They were once our servants, artificial beings we created to maintain our systems. When our transformation began to fail, they determined that the only solution was to eliminate us entirely. They believe our technology is too dangerous to exist. They hunt us across the galaxy, Zara 9 continued, destroying any trace of our civilization they find. Now they will come for this station, our last refuge. The beam turned to Elena, their form solidifying with effort. You must leave. Quickly. The Void Hunters will show no mercy to those who assist us. Elena looked at her team. She saw the fear in their eyes, but also determination. They had come seeking knowledge and found something far more important. A chance to save a dying civilization. No, Elena said firmly. We're not leaving. Dr. Santos, Chen cautioned, the Hyperion is a research vessel. We're not equipped for combat. The lieutenant is correct, Zara 9 said. Your vessel's defensive capabilities are insignificant compared to the Void Hunters. You cannot hope to survive an encounter. Elena smiled. Hope isn't about calculating odds. It's about seeing possibilities where others see only problems. She turned to Marcus. Those quantum matrices you were studying, they're basically enormous power distribution networks, right? Marcus nodded slowly. Then his eyes widened as he caught her train of thought. Yes, and if we could reconfigure them, maybe create redundant systems using simpler technology. Exactly, Elena said. Lieutenant Chen, what's the status of those experimental shield modulators we were testing? Untried in combat, Chen replied, but she was already pulling up schematics on her neural display. But if we could integrate them with the station's existing defenses. The luminary watched this exchange with growing fascination. You cannot seriously believe your primitive technology could interface with our systems, Core Mind Nexus said, but there was a note of uncertainty in their voice. 3 months ago, nobody believed we could track quantum fluctuations across interstellar distances, Elena countered. But here we are. The Void Hunters expect to find a dying civilization clinging to failing technology. Instead, they'll find humanity's greatest strength, our ability to adapt, to improvise, to find solutions where none should exist. She turned to address all the luminary present. You achieved something incredible. You reached for the stars and reshaped reality itself. Maybe it didn't work out exactly as planned, but that doesn't mean your civilization has to end. Let us help you find a new way forward. The chamber fell silent. The luminaries' forms flickered and shifted as they communicated in ways humans couldn't perceive. Finally, Zara 9 spoke. In all our centuries of existence, we never considered that our salvation might come from a species we once considered primitive. Their form brightened slightly. Your confidence borders on madness. But perhaps that is exactly what we need. Then we need to move quickly, Elena said. Those ships will be here soon. Marcus, start working with their engineers to understand their power distribution systems. Lieutenant Chen, coordinate with the Hyperion. I want those shield modulators ready for testing within 6 hours. As her team sprung into action, Elena felt the weight of what they were attempting. They were about to pit human ingenuity against godlike technology. The odds were astronomical. But then, Humanity had never let impossible odds stop them before. Time was running out. The vast chamber that served as the Hyperion crew's improvised command center hummed with activity as humans and Luminary worked side by side. Holographic displays showed the approaching Void Hunter vessels, 3 massive ships that moved like shadows through space, now less than 12 hours away. Elena watched as Marcus Way crawled out of an access tunnel, his face streaked with sweat despite the environmental controls. In his hands, he held what looked like an ancient circuit board connected to crystalline components that pulsed with quantum energy. "It's not elegant," he said, holding up the hybrid device, "but it works. We can use standard copper conductors as a backup for their quantum pathways. When one matrix starts to destabilize, the system automatically shifts to conventional electrical transmission until the quantum pathway can reset." Zera 9 materialized beside them, their form flickering with what Elena had learned to recognize as agitation. Impossible. The energy loss through such primitive conductors would be catastrophic. "Actually, no," Marcus grinned. "That's what gave me the idea. Your systems are so efficient that they can't handle fluctuations. They're too perfect. But copper wiring can absorb and redistribute power surges. It's inefficient, yes, but sometimes inefficiency is exactly what you need." Elena nodded. It was the same principle they'd discovered throughout the station. The Luminary had engineered their systems to absolute perfection, eliminating every redundancy, every waste. But in doing so, they'd also eliminated their margin for error. When something went wrong, it went wrong catastrophically. Across the chamber, Lieutenant Chen was working with Core Mine Nexus, surrounded by disassembled components from the Hyperion's shield modulators. "The principle is simple," she explained. "Your quantum shields are incredibly powerful, but they try to block everything. Our modulators are selective. They let harmless frequencies pass through while concentrating power on actual threats. Like letting steam escape from a pressure cooker," Elena added, seeing the Luminary's confusion. "Sometimes the strongest defense isn't an impenetrable wall, but one that knows when to bend." The Luminary were beginning to understand. Throughout the station, human solutions were being implemented, solutions that would have seemed absurdly primitive to the Luminary at the height of their power. But they worked. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the Hyperion's systems specialist, had discovered that the station's failing power cores could be stabilized using principles borrowed from Earth's old fission reactors. "Your quantum reactors are trying to maintain perfect fusion at all times," she explained to a group of fascinated Luminary engineers. "But by introducing controlled instability, essentially letting them cycle between high and low states, we can reduce the overall strain on the system." Even the station's basic life support was being revolutionized by human thinking. The Luminary had created complex molecular reconstructors to maintain their environment. The human engineers replaced them with a series of simple chemical scrubbers based on technology that had kept submarines habitable for centuries. But it was in the medical bay that the most crucial breakthrough came. Elena stood with Marcus and the Luminary's chief scientist, examining the quantum matrices that kept their consciousness intact. "The problem isn't the transformation itself," Marcus explained, pointing to his displays. "It's that you're trying to maintain a perfect quantum state indefinitely. But nothing in nature maintains a perfect state. Everything fluctuates, cycles, changes. We are beyond nature," the chief scientist argued, but with less certainty than before. Elena stepped in. "No species is beyond nature. We're all part of it, no matter how advanced we become. Instead of fighting against natural entropy, what if we worked with it?" Marcus nodded eagerly. "We can modify the matrices to allow for controlled fluctuation. Yes, it means you'll experience periods of reduced quantum coherence, but it's sustainable. You'll survive." The chief scientist's form wavered as they processed this. "You are suggesting we deliberately introduce imperfection into our system." "I'm suggesting you embrace adaptation," Elena replied. "It's how life survives. Not by achieving perfection, but by learning to thrive within imperfection." Throughout the station, more changes were being implemented. The humans' primitive solutions were doing more than just buying time. They were fundamentally changing how the station operated. The luminary, who had spent centuries trying to maintain their perfect but failing systems, were learning to accept and even appreciate the beauty of imperfect but functional solutions. But they weren't done yet. The Void Hunters were still coming, and their next challenge would be to defend against enemies who had once been the luminary's own perfect creations. Alina looked at the tactical displays, watching the enemy ships approach. The luminary had created the Void Hunters to be perfect killing machines, unburdened by doubt or mercy. Perfect. Alina mused, but predictable. She turned to Lieutenant Chen. "How are those shield modifications coming along?" Chen smiled. "Ready for testing. The Void Hunters won't expect their targets to fight back. They certainly won't expect human ingenuity combined with luminary technology." As if in response to her words, the station shuddered slightly. In the distance, through the quantum blast windows, they could see the first signs of the Void Hunters' approach. Darkness moving against the stars. "Then let's give them something else they won't expect," Alina said. "It's time to show them that perfection isn't everything. Sometimes the best solution is a little bit of human chaos." The Void Hunters arrived like a wound in space. 3 massive vessels that seemed to devour light itself. Alina stood at the station's primary control nexus, watching as the enemy ships took up attack positions. Around her, humans and luminary worked in perfect synchronization, their earlier divisions forgotten in the face of immediate danger. "They're broadcasting," Lieutenant Chen announced from her modified control station. "Audio only." "Let's hear it," Alina nodded. A voice like grinding metal filled the chamber. "Luminary remnants detected. Obsolete programming detected. Human biosigns detected. All deviations must be eliminated. Surrender." And the two forces met in space. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then reality itself appeared to hiccup. The Void Hunter's perfect weapon scattered like light through a prism, while the hybrid pulse expanded in ways that should have been impossible. Warning signals blared throughout the station as sensors tried to make sense of what was happening. The Void Hunter's ships began to drift, their perfect systems thrown into disarray by something they couldn't analyze or predict. "Direct hits on all 3 vessels," Chen reported. "Their quantum cores are destabilizing. They're retreating." The chamber erupted in celebration as they watched the Void Hunter ships, their perfect hulls, now scared and distorted, disappear back into the darkness of space. The impossible had happened. Human unpredictability had defeated machine perfection. "They'll be back," Core Mind Nexus warned, but their tone held something new hope. "But next time, we'll be ready." Alina nodded, watching the last traces of the battle fade from their sensors. "Yes, we will. Because next time, they won't be facing a dying civilization trying to maintain perfection. They'll be facing something new, the combined strength of human adaptability and luminary knowledge." Around them, the hybrid systems they'd created continued to function, not perfectly, but persistently. It wasn't the future the luminary had imagined for themselves, but perhaps it was something better. A future where perfection gave way to progress, and isolation gave way to collaboration. 3 months after the battle with the Void Hunters, the luminary station had transformed into something entirely new. Where once perfect crystalline structures had housed a dying civilization, now a hybrid of human and luminary technology created something unprecedented in the galaxy. A place where imperfection bred innovation, and adaptation led to strength. Alina stood in what they now called the integration chamber, watching as another group of luminary underwent the modification process that would ensure their survival. The quantum matrices that maintained their consciousness no longer strove for perfect stability. Instead, they pulsed with a rhythm almost like a heartbeat, allowing their energy states to naturally flux and flow. The last group reported a 98% successful adaptation rate, Marcus reported, reviewing data on his modified interface. The device itself was a symbol of their cooperation. Human electronics seamlessly merged with luminary quantum technology. They're even starting to develop new abilities we didn't anticipate. The controlled instability is allowing them to interact with physical matter in ways they couldn't before. Zera 9 materialized beside them, their form now more stable than ever despite, or perhaps because of, its deliberate imperfection. We thought we had reached the pinnacle of evolution, they said, their voice carrying a new warmth that had been absent in their first meeting. We were so focused on transcending our physical limitations that we forgot the most fundamental law of life itself. Adaptation is the key to survival. Speaking of adaptation, Lieutenant Chen called from her station. The new defense grid is online. We've integrated the chaos protocols directly into the station's base programming. Any future Void Hunter attacks will face an ever-changing, evolving defense system. The mention of the Void Hunters brought a momentary tension to the room, but it wasn't fear anymore, just heightened awareness. The enemy would return, everyone knew that, but they would find something very different waiting for them. Show them the prototype, Elena encouraged, and Chen activated a holographic display. The image that appeared showed a new kind of vessel, one that combined luminary quantum engineering with human innovation. Its hull rippled with adaptive camouflage, its systems designed to be unpredictable by nature rather than modified after the fact. It was the first of what would become a joint defense fleet. We're calling it the Synthesis class, Chen explained. Fast, adaptable, and impossible to predict. The perfect counter to an enemy that relies on perfection. Perfection, Core Mind Nexus observed, emerging from a nearby data stream, is stagnation. We understand that now. Our pursuit of it nearly led to our extinction, but humanity showed us a different path. Elena smiled, remembering their first desperate days of cooperation. We just showed you what you already had inside you, the capacity to change, to adapt, to embrace new possibilities. Sometimes the greatest strength lies in acknowledging our limitations. The station shuddered slightly as another system came online, this one a direct result of their combined research. The Luminary had possessed the theoretical knowledge to create stable wormholes, but their pursuit of perfect calculations had always led to failure. It took human intuition to suggest that the wormholes didn't need to be perfect. They just needed to be good enough. The first transport ships from Earth will arrive tomorrow, Elena noted, watching the wormhole stabilize. Scientists, engineers, diplomats, all coming to learn and share knowledge. She turned to Zera 9. Are you ready for that? It will mean even more chaos, more unpredictability. The luminary leader's form brightened. We welcome it. Already, our younger ones are showing signs of change. They're asking questions we never thought to ask, seeing possibilities we never imagined. Your human chaos is infectious. Life is chaos, Marcus added, looking up from his work. The universe itself is built on uncertainty and change. We just had to remind you of that. An alert sounded, not an alarm, but a notification. Another group of luminary had completed their adaptation process. On the monitors, Elena could see their forms stabilizing into their new state of controlled imperfection. Each one was slightly different, unique in ways the luminary had once sought to eliminate. Now they celebrated these differences. We thought we were saving you, Elena mused, but in reality, we were saving each other. Humanity needed to see what was possible, to be reminded that our primitive solutions had value. And you needed to be reminded that progress isn't about reaching some ultimate state of perfection. It's about continuing to grow and change. A synthesis, Zera 9 agreed. Not just of technology, but of philosophy, of ways of thinking and being. Outside the station's quantum blast windows, the stars shone steadily. Somewhere out there, the Void Hunters were probably planning their return, still bound by their programming to eliminate what they saw as imperfection. But they would find no easy target here. Instead, they would face something unprecedented. A civilization that had learned to thrive in the space between order and chaos, perfection and adaptation. Human ingenuity combined with luminary knowledge had created something entirely new, proving that sometimes the greatest achievements come not from reaching for perfection, but from embracing the beautiful uncertainty of existence itself. The next chapter begins tomorrow, Elena said, watching the wormhole's event horizon shimmer with possibility. Are we ready? Zara-9's form, pulsed with what Elena had learned, was laughter. Ready? No. We're perfectly imperfect. And that's exactly how it should be. Around them, the hybrid systems hummed with life, each slight fluctuation a testament to the strength found in adaptation. The luminary had sought to transcend existence itself, only to discover that true transcendence lay not in escaping life's fundamental nature, but in embracing it. And humanity, in helping them rediscover this truth, had taken its first steps into a larger universe, one where the possibilities were truly endless. The last light of the Nexus had become a new dawn, illuminating a path forward that neither species could have found alone. In the end, that was humanity's greatest gift to the cosmos. Not technology or power, but the simple, profound understanding that imperfection was not a flaw to be corrected, but the very force that drove the universe forward.